Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the LCN number 4040XP door closer, but with an Cush arm. So this video will be a visual review of the components in the box. We'll go over the associated supporting documentation, cut sheet, product catalog, template, how to select the right LCN closer we'll get into. Really, the video will focus more on this arm and the other arms. A 4040XP is the standard, really the standard flagship surface closer from LCN. It doesn't have a delayed action functionality. You would use the standard 4040 cylinder if you wanted delayed action, but otherwise it'll be a 4040XP. So here is that ubiquitous arm style that you see in lots of different places. You're going to have your valve control on the front of the body, and then down here. There's also a valve in the back as well that we're going to discuss, a little known valve that is referred to, and we'll talk about that in a moment. What's nice about the cylinder is that it has your, it has a legend as to how to go about actually adjusting the item. It shows you those areas of your three different valves in terms of what you'll end up adjusting should you need to. So what's nice about it is it will give you your valves, but also show you a reference to your spring tension as well at the end of the body, which is down in here. Okay, so three valves, which are going to give you latch, sweep, and then back check. Really is what that would end up being. Along with the ability to tailor that valve. And since we're talking about valves, what is that valve that's in the back? Generally, that valve is never used, never touched, and even for people who have been in the industry for years and years and years, it's never been noticed. But let's talk about why that valve is there. So that valve on the back of the body is actually called a back check selector valve, and it's not referred to in the installation instructions that I could see. It is referred to in some published documentation, but I don't believe it's on here at all. So a back check selector valve needs to be turned in clockwise all the way when you're doing a parallel arm mount only. This is clearly a parallel arm mount. It's a Cush arm, so it's obviously parallel arm. It happens to be a hold open Cush arm, but it's a parallel arm mount. And the reason that you close that valve is so that the fluid path inside of the body travels the appropriate distance so that the back check valve is allowing you the control over the entire sweep of the door closer opening cycle so that your back check valve controls the right degree from zero. That back check valve needs to be closed in on parallel arm installations. If you have a top jam or a regular arm mount, don't touch that valve. Just forget that you ever saw it or that you were ever aware of it. So that's what that valve is there for. Now, the rest of the tour, let's just go to the most important second thing here, is your parallel arm bracket. This is non-handed. This is going to be used in an application where you have a parallel arm mount. You have a hold open function or a turn handle, or a thumb turn, some people will call this. And a lot of people like these models of hold open because they're so, they're robust and they're heavy duty, and it's easy to get up there and to release the hold open that occurs over that. Okay? That's why that's there. That'll hold that arm in place until you release it, allowing you to move the door. A hold open arm like this, a thumb turn style or a T-handle style, is advantageous compared to a friction style hold open because of all of the substantial additional force that's applied to the arm, to the door closer, to the friction part of the arm itself, the nut, the friction disc, the forearm, the parallel arm bracket if one is used, back to the closer body, down to the screws that hold everything together. A lot of force because you're literally pushing the door to the point where it's held open. And then you're going to push that back to get the two nuts spread, the friction nuts spread from each other. So a handle like this is by far more by far more of an elegant solution when it comes to holding open a door rather than forcing a piece of hardware to friction stay open together. A lot of people like this type of arm because it's easy to reach up there and to manipulate the condition of the arm without stressing anything. And I think some people consider it heavier duty. So let's continue on with the other components that are part of the bill of materials in this closer. Now, continuing with our tour of the contents of the box, we've gone over the arm, the closer body. You're going to get this nifty little bracket, and this bracket's going to fit into one of the either preparations, one of the two preparations in the plastic cover, and it will serve to not only fill that area, but will allow you to snap the cover right onto the cylindrical portion of the door closer body. Okay, you're going to need the cover. And when I say you're going to need the cover, you're going to need the cover. You have to have the cover. Well, what I mean to say is you have to have the cover if you're doing a fire-rated door. If you're not doing a fire-rated door, then you don't need the cover. But if I were to say to you, okay, you get the concept, I think, of how that's going to mount. If I were to say to you, if you have a fire-rated door, and you have this closer installed without the cover, the cover's been taken off and not replaced, would you still have a fire-rated door? Well, the answer to that question is no, you don't. You no longer have a fire-rated door. And while it seems incredibly, it's a bit of a trick question. While it seems incredibly inane to basically make the statement that your door is no longer fire-rated if a piece of plastic is not installed. In a fire test, that test is within 2 or 3 minutes going to hit 1800 degrees, and it's going to park there for another 2 hours and 57 minutes. That plastic is long gone, right? However, the way that the rules read when it comes to fire doors, as sitting in several classes of code and fire door inspection and NFPA. The question is, if you don't have the plastic cover on your door closer installed, is it still a fire-rated door? The answer is always, as the teachers will tell you, it depends. It's always an it depends answer, it seems. But in this case, it's an it depends because it depends on, what do the installation instructions say? The installation instructions are literally the defining characteristic when it comes to whether or not you have a fire door. And it says in step 7, snap-on cover. It's mandatory. You need the cover. And it's interesting that we actually do sell just the covers. They get pulled off. They get vandalized, written on in bathrooms of restaurants, destroyed. These plastic covers, are not super durable. They're also available in metal, if you want more durability from just, unintentional or intentional contact. They're made in metal when you do a plated closer sort of condition where you're going to do a polished brass or a satin chrome. So be mindful, you'll need that cover. Then, of course, along with the arm that we've gone over, you have your screw package. Now, because of the thickness of the body on the LCN 4000 series, you always have really long screws to get through that body. Okay, you're going to have all of the fasteners that you need to attach the door closer body to the door, the parallel arm bracket to the header, along with the 5th screw spacer, that piece of black plastic. If you have a narrow frame where your soffit width is not large enough to allow that screw to get in there, you'll use that little block, aluminum storefront, or a 4 3/4 hollow metal frame. You'll use that block to run your screw through for that 5th hole spacer. Okay. You're also going to have the funny screw for the arm down to the spindle. You'll have that as well. Okay. You're also going to have screws here sorry, which you'll use one of them, and a screw will go down into the top of the unit. Through the cover, you're screwing the cover to the top of the body itself. Let's take a look. I think there's another screw in here that I'm not sure of where it ends up. And there are a couple of fasteners. That screw right there, this hex head screw, I'm not sure where that goes. And then these two flathead screws, or I believe there are two, right here. I'm not sure where those go. This screw pack may be used in some different derivatives of a 4040XP. You might have a transom bracket or some sort of an additional bracket that would be mounted. So I'm not sure where those are going to go. You need, before for the body, you need the screws for the parallel arm bracket, the screw to hold the arm here through here. But where the balance goes, I do not know. Different closer. Sex bolts, or the female portion of the sex bolts, are included as well, and you'll be able to use your machine screws with those. Okay, so if you're doing a door that is not reinforced for this door closer, and you've not drilled and tapped, you're going to have to through bolt those. Before you through bolt those, you might want to be sure that the owner, the architect, the contractor understands that they're going to see those 4 bolt heads on the pull side of the door. The hardware schedule would call those out. So if they're listed there, you're going to use them, because if you've got the approved hardware set, they're meant to be used. If they're not there, then it's probably intended such that you install by drilling and tapping. Or if it's a wood door, it's been reinforced. So be mindful of that. You don't want to do, 4 pair of pair-matched, set-matched anti-gray wood doors on a convention center for the architect to come, or the owner to come and say, why are all those little silver dots on my doors? Okay? You don't want to through bolt those unless you know you need to. So let's switch to the screen view and take a look at the supporting documentation for this closer. Okay, so let's continue on with this video. Here's the item that we're looking at. Not much to see here, so let's move over to the supporting documentation that's listed down below. This is a cut sheet, just a single-page summary of the door closer itself. 4040XP is the most durable and flexible heavy-duty surface-mounted closer designed for institutional and other demanding high-traffic applications. It sets the standard for reliability, longevity, and value with a robust design and extraordinary performance testing. LCN goes beyond ANSI and BHMA standards with abuse cycle temperature testing to mimic what door closers encounter in high abuse applications. And you can continue to read on through this. The patented green dial on the 4040XP makes spring adjustments fast, easy, and foolproof. All-weather fluid reduces maintenance and ensures consistent performance through every season. All of that is true in my experience. This is the closer that I choose to use every time that I can. And it's because of the exceptional track record I've had with this door closer, with the engineering behind it, with the people behind the engineering. Their technical support department at LCN is superb. Absolutely superb. Now, what I like about it is the fact that you can toss onto it many different arm styles. And let's jump to the product brochure. And their catalogs, I should say, this is the 4000 series product brochure. So we're going to scroll right to the 4040XP area, because in the 4000 series there are many derivatives: 4010, 4020, 4030, 4040, etc. Okay, so we're going to get right to the 4040XP, and here it is. Some highlights. It's class 1. Pardon me, it's grade 1. Million cycles it's been tested to. Who knows how many cycles it would work, how many several millions it would actually work to. I don't know, but it meets the requirement of 1 million cycles. Cast iron body. A lot of people like that cast iron body, and many manufacturers do not make their closer bodies out of cast iron. And it's because of a cogent argument that says, why add all the extra weight? Why not use aluminum? I do not disagree with that. There are people who like the weight of the item because it infers to them quality. I don't know if cast iron as a base material and my extremely positive experience with this closer go hand in hand, but if it takes a cast iron closer body to get me the sort of exceptional performance, I'll take a cast iron closer body. Other construction features that go along with this closer. It's non-handed. You're going to be able to install this right out of the box, regardless of your installation handing requirements. Plastic cover or a metal cover. Fasteners. SRT, self-reaming and tapping screws. You can mount this in any of three ways: your regular arm, your top jam, and your parallel arm, and we'll go over that in a moment. Colors or finishes, aluminum, statutory bronze. Pardon me, I said statutory. It's statuary. Statuary bronze, not statutory. Statuary bronze, light bronze, black, dark bronze, brass. Custom finishes, and then, of course, plated finishes as well. SRI is a rust-inhibiting primer that you can do in a powder coat. If you're going to paint your material to match something, order it in SRI. It'll give it to you powder-coated. Little matrix down here showing you a variety of things that you can review. So what LCN does is they automatically will then get into a drawing showing the three different mount types. This is the hinge or regular arm mount, where the body's mounted on the pull side, as is the arm. The top jam mount is generally the second arm, second style, body up on the header and the arm on. What's important to know about the regular arm is you're on the push side. The top jam is where the body's on the header and the arm on the door where you're on the, pull side for the regular arm mount. Pull side. I think I said push side. The top jam is the push side. The parallel arm is the push side, body on the door itself and the arm bracket on the soffit of the header. And that fifth, I keep zooming in with my scroll wheel. That fifth screw bracket spacer is illustrated here. Okay. Now you're clearly doing a parallel arm mount, and what they get into next is detailing your other arm types. So we're doing a Cush arm. The Cush arm is basically an arm that is parallel arm and incorporates a dead stop. There is a feature to the arm which is inferred here, where when this door goes out and away from you, the main arm is going to hit that dead stop and serve to dead stop the arm. Okay. Other features of the Cush arm are here that you can review. The 4040 accessories. The body, the standard body is here. If you want delayed action, it'll be a 4041 body that you would get. Delayed action is meant to allow you to have separate valve control over the speed at which the door closes. And those closers were introduced, after ADA was passed in the early 90s. However, I think practice has taught us that you can make a door slow down so that it's compliant with handicap requirements. In order to do that, you're going to be affecting the sweep valve or closing cycle, which is from, let's say, 80 degree down to 10 or 15 degree. Delayed action gives you the ability to control that past 90 degree, because if someone were to come through the opening in a wheelchair, you don't want that door at 90 starting to close, albeit a little slowly. You'd like to get that door, wouldn't you, open past 110 degrees and allow it to creep slow in that portion of the arc, so that the door is not hitting the person coming through who's disabled somehow in a wheelchair. Obviously the easy example to think of. Covers, you can do both the plastic and a metal cover. Your different arms are shown, and you'll want to study those arms if your application is not specifically solved in the initial 3 drawings. Okay, here's our HCUSH, our hold open cush. So the cush, CUSH, means solid forged steel main arm and forearm with stop in soffit shoe. The parallel arm bracket mounts to the soffit. They're calling it the soffit shoe. That's fine. The dead stop is right here. That little doodad that's threaded on. It's non-handed because you can unthread that and move it over here. Okay. In the world of hold open arms, you can do the friction style. You can do the HCUSH style. You can do the HCNS style, the hold open cushion stop. The cushion stop is different in the sense that it has an apparatus in it, shown here. What was I showing you? Yeah, I was showing you our arm, the HCUSH, forgive me, with our little thumb turn. Hold open function with templated stop hold open points. Handle controls hold open function. Okay. You can do the same arm in a cushion stop, SHCUSH, where this apparatus here features a dead stop, but it's a spring absorbing method of dead stop. If you have a high abuse application like a gymnasium and you do need to hold open the doors, meaning they're not fire rated, which you'll have to be mindful, those doors are probably fire rated, or maybe they're not. You might want a cushion stop, and that's really the end of the line when it comes to heavy-duty arms from LCN. Installation brackets such as drop plates, those are going to be typical. If you don't feel like you have enough room to mount your closer body onto your frame or your header, definitely refer to the installation instructions. And of course, referring to installation instructions is always a suggested method to go about to determine whether or not what you are proposing to use for a solution is going to work. It also serves to make you more familiar with the hardware. When you look at it from the eyes of the installer, you'll have a better understanding of what the deal is in terms of what it's all about. Will it work? Does it meet my requirements? Will it fit? Do I need some other accessories like drop plates or a cush shoe? And those bolts that I couldn't figure out, they might be for the cush shoe if you needed to run your bracket to the face of the header. That's what that could be for in that bag. Blade stop spacer, flush panel adapter, that snap-on cover clip, those get lost all the time, along with the closer covers. You probably want to order a closer cover if you're missing it. It does include that snap-on clip, but it again will screw to the top of the body. Your how to order page. Now we're looking at the page of how to order a closer, and every manufacturer, every good manufacturer will list the format into which they want you to structure the part number. And you would generally go in just simply an order. So you're going to define your closer series, the finish, any closer options that are necessary. The arm type is really the important part. So you're dealing with a 4040 is the bottom line. Generally, the arm would come after that. And you would, in this case, we would have our HCUSH. You would have your options. You would have your fastener package. You would have your finish. You would have anything that's important in terms of the door thickness or door size. Installation accessories would certainly come in that line as well, along with the hand, if I've not already said the hand. Okay, so you want to include all of that. What's nice about this 4040 is it will handle all of your different sizes, really, that you're going to really bump into a door closer application with. My rule of thumb is I don't try to exceed 200 pounds when I'm using a surface closer, but I've seen people do really interesting things with LCN closers. I've literally seen someone take the closer body and stack them on top of each other and then couple the spindles together. I've literally seen someone install them in a parallel arm fashion and a regular arm fashion on the same door. That the latter example, Chicago locksmith client of mine who deals with the condo buildings on Lake Michigan. You know, the only thing between these buildings and Lake Michigan is Lakeshore Drive. Whether you be, 2400 north all the way up to, basically 7200 north. Well, not that far north, but maybe 6600 north, just south of Loyola University. Very windy down there by the lake. It's not why Chicago is the windy city, of course, but it is true that it's very windy there. So you can do a lot of interesting things with these closers. Adjustable spring tension they're showing you here as well. Be nice to be able to move to now let's see, we've covered the cut sheet, we've covered the product catalog. Let's cover the how to choose the right closer, and I'm not going to go over it with you, but I just want to draw your attention to the fact that the document exists. Cast iron closers. Your application would be a good first choice of where to look for that material to narrow it down. They do have some cast aluminum closers as well. Now, the reason that aluminum is certainly advantageous is, like I had said earlier, why throw all that extra weight onto the door? And that's really a good reason for putting an aluminum body closer onto the unit. When you have a closer body, this closer weighs 12.9 pounds with the arm, but it's still very heavy. The cast aluminum closers would be far less. The arm would likely weigh well more than the door closer body itself. If you have an opening that's going to take lots of cycles, I would consider, depending on my hanging hardware, hinges, pivots, continuous hinges, pin and barrel, floor closer, overhead closer with pivots, I would consider the weight of all the hardware that I'm tossing onto the door as well. So this document is here and it's handy to get you to. Now the question is, well, I want to look at the 4030 or I want to look at the 3030. Okay, well, what I would do in this case is here is the link to the manufacturer's page, and then from there you can pull up the full product catalog. Okay, that will get you to those series other than the 4000 series, like the 1460, the 1260, these concealed 3030, 2010, etc. Okay, the track arm, the T version or the track arm mount might be advantageous. It does change the look. It might make it more architecturally pleasing to someone who is concerned with that, like an interior designer, like an end user as well. Now it brings us to the template, is where this video now takes us, and let's take a look at the template. So as we continue on into the installation instructions, all door closers that are surface mounted certainly are going to be governed by the distance that you mount them from the vertical axis of pivoting, which is meant to be this dashed line, to the first reference hole. And the closer the closer body is to that vertical axis of pivoting, which is, if I were to put an X right in the center of our hinge barrel, that's our vertical axis of pivoting, or pivot, or pin and barrel hinge, or continuous hinge. The closer the body is to that axis, the higher the degree of opening you will be able to accomplish. Now, when you're dealing with a hold open closer, obviously, you're not going to be able to template this to 180. Well, maybe not obviously. You won't be able to template this to 180 degree. And in fact, the templating for your hold open point is indeed the same as what you see here. So depending on where you want your hold open point to occur, that's going to be your vertical axis of pivoting to your first hole. So that's easy. That happens with every closer. Now, I can tell you from personal experience that it's important to get the lateral dimension accurate, but it's not ultra critical in all instances. In some it is. There's a note here that talks about the dead stop on a spring cush. We're not doing a spring cush, but you'll want to be really accurate when you know that you have to calculate a 5 degree in addition to what you template, or maybe subtract from this and template accordingly, knowing that your door will hyperextend another 5 degree to dead stop. Now, why is that important? Well, imagine you have a pair of doors that, no, you have 2 pair of doors. Okay? These doors are going to open up like this. It's really important to know where they're going to end up in relationship to each other, so that they don't permit your trim to crash into each other. So knowing that you've got an extra 5 degree is important. So in lots of instances, it doesn't matter 5 degree plus or minus, but in other instances, it's the difference between a success and a fail. So be mindful of that. You'll want to be accurate. Now, what's always accurate 100% of the time is the height from the reference point, in this case the soffit, of where you install that material. If you have ever walked through a door and you've heard a clanking sound, it's either the threshold that's come loose or it's the door closer arm hitting the top of the door generally, because it's not maintained, it's loose, or it's not been installed correctly. So be mindful of that. Okay. Additional dimensions to show you where to place your parallel arm bracket. So I would automatically highlight what degree of opening I'm doing and mark all those locations. Everything else is pretty elementary at this point. Okay, so they're literally showing you what this looks like if you're dealing with a left-hand, well, they're saying left-hand door, and that's correct. It's actually a right-hand reverse door, or a left-hand reverse door, which would be called a right hand. Okay, very easy, simple, and straightforward. How to set the spring on this closer, if you recall in the manufacturer's product catalog, our table here gives you an idea of what size you need to accomplish. Well, this translates into what you do to adjust your closer spring. Okay? So there you go. You'll adjust that only if necessary. If you have a 3-foot door, I probably wouldn't, a 3-foot exterior door, you're going to need to adjust that. I wouldn't adjust it beyond that. Cycle the door multiple times until it works suitably. However, we're kind of jumping ahead in the sense that we don't have the door closer installed yet. But you can set the tension if you like, you just can't test it yet. The arm has to go on, and the arm needs to be installed how they're showing here. And it's called a parallel arm, and that's because that main arm is going to be basically parallel to the face of the door. The main arm is from the closer spindle to the elbow. Think of your shoulder to the elbow. This is your forearm down here. Okay, that will not be parallel. That will be slightly angled. I don't know if they're going to show it to us at all, but so now that you've got your arm attached, you can then start to set your valves should you need to. And remember, you're going to want to close that back check valve on the back of the body if it's not already closed, but I doubt that it is. I think that all of those are open, and you adjust them only if necessary. And it actually says, I made a mistake earlier. I said it didn't say on the instructions. It does. Step 4, I missed it completely. Screw in valve on back of closer. Close that. And that's because you're dealing with a Cush. If the installation instructions were for a regular arm, meaning if the installation instructions were for these arms here, it would probably have a reference to it as being optional to do that if you were installing it with the PA bracket. So step 4 tells us close that valve, and that's how you'll do that. Step 5 now tells us to set the business end of what makes the Cush arm set. Shoe must be handed to match door before mounting. Open the door at approximately 45 degree. Attach arm to frame with fasteners provided. So you've marked your holes. You're going to want to remove that if you need to, and then place it in location. You'll want to have that removed before you're installing that material so that there's no conflict with you not being able to get the door open. Okay? So you'll place that in the proper position. Your valves, if necessary, make adjustments. It's possible, it's likely that you won't need to make any, but what's important to know is that they are defining the valves. The latch speed is basically 15 degree to 0, which is valve 3. Valve 2 is the sweep or main speed. It's from about 75 down to 15. And then your back check is going to be from about 70 or so to 90. Back check is simply this. If you have an exterior door and it swings out, if you've ever seen or you can imagine a gust of wind catching your door and forcefully pushing it open further, the back check valve will help arrest that uncontrolled movement of the door. You will want that. And you'll be able to test that as you push the door open. You'll be able to tell when you hit that back check valve, when you've turned that in. And I would not suggest you make substantial changes to any of the valves at one time. Go incrementally and then cycle the door 2 or 3 times. If you have a 4041 cylinder, there will be a delayed action, which is going to be valve number 4, as referred to here. That would be here. We don't have one on our 4040XP. You can't get the delayed action with that. Now that again is going to give you, when your door is way out here, it's going to slow that down way out here. If you know that handicapped people are coming through the opening, I would suggest you do a delayed action. They talk about the hold open arm and how to go about to engage that. A quarter turn or a 90 degree will allow you to disengage when that's in the engaged position. That's pretty straightforward, self-explanatory. Snap that cover on. Again, if it's a fire-rated door, be sure to have it on there. It won't be a fire-rated door without, believe it or not. That was an actual question in an NFPA class that I was in. Other languages here. They talk about how to move the arm stop. The filler plug is already in the PA bracket, or what they're calling the shoe. It's already pushed in. If you need to move that arm stop, you'll flip both of those pieces that are listed here. It comes from the factory configured for a left-hand installation. So if you have a right-hand reverse door, you're good. If you have a left-hand door, you're good. It's probably right-hand reverse. If you have a left-hand reverse or a right-hand, you'll have to switch that. The accessories I talked about earlier, you could need that shoe support, that angle, that's going to give you that 6th hole that's here. And I believe that those other, these bolts, well, they say that 2 are required, but again, there were a couple of mystery bolts in there. Okay. And if you have so this shoe support is optional when you have a very narrow soffit dimension. Like a 4 3/4 hollow metal frame will have a very small dimension there, where neither your 5th or your 6th hole will hit. You're gonna need that optional shoe support. And I had said much earlier how helpful it is to actually look at the installation instructions, and that's because it's going to tip you off. Hey, am I sending stuff to the job site that's inadequate? You don't want your client to call you and say, yeah, the door closer fell off the first time I used it. Why is that? Tell me more about it. Well, I've got a 4 3/4 frame. You know, I couldn't use all of those screws that you sent. Now things are starting to trigger in your mind. So looking at the installation instructions always will help guide you away, navigate you away from problems. That spacer, that black plastic block, you see where it's used. You would use that when you do not have a soffit and only a blade stop. Aluminum storefront, very common to have blade stops. Okay, you'll certainly need that optional shoe support as well. A cushion stop, if you need to get into that, I would very much recommend that if you have exterior doors. Cushion stops will really help keep the door working. This is a dead stop to the point where if you were to ram the door open so hard where it would shear the bolt. This is a spring version of that will help slowly arrest that door via the spring that's there. Okay. So there you go. Those are our installation instructions. Let's wrap up this video on camera. Now, admittedly, I'm hyper partial when it comes to LCN, and it's not because I've had good luck. I've had good luck with lots of things that I don't use or need or ask to supply or specify or guide clients with. But the bona fide objective reason I'm hyper partial is because every time, without fail, I get a prompt, professional, reliable, dependable answer from tech support. These people, it's culture. Under a Legion, Schlage, Von Duprin, LCN, those flagship properties have such exceptional technical support that it's really, really difficult to say to yourself, let's use someone else's closer. There are times when you will. Cost, availability, I suppose. Cost, okay? But in the long term, when you can realize that this closer has an obscene warranty, I believe it's 30 years, when you are making an investment in door hardware, you will definitely want to consider the entire cost of owning that door closer. If you can't get technical support to find out what bolt package you need to get your closer working again, we would call into question that original investment. If you have any questions on the 4040 XP and an HCUSH arm or any other LCN product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.